Hello, welcome, Walker family. Thank you for joining us today. We are here to paint this beautiful lady, Miss Geneva Walker, and honor her for her 75th birthday. Thank you so much for allowing Coleman Events to be a part of this special day. We truly appreciate it. So, our artist today is Miss Heather, and she's going to take you through how to create this masterpiece and make it your own. Before we get started, you want to go ahead and take everything out of your paint kits. You want to put on those aprons because we are dealing with acrylic paint. It tends to dry fast. It tends to dry permanent. So you want to protect your clothing. We'll give you a few moments to do that. All right. Next, you want to open up your paint pots. Now, a little trick to opening up the paint pots is to hold the base with your right hand and open the left flap with your left hand. And we'll give you a few moments to do that if you want to take a second and pause the video while you get set up with your paint pots, your aprons, and putting water in your cups. All right, ready to begin? Miss Heather is going to take you through how to turn this into your very own masterpiece. This picture that you see here is the finished product, and you have a canvas that has been pre-printed. So without further ado, Miss Heather, you can take it away.
Hello, thanks for coming to paint with me today. I'm going to walk you through step by step how to paint this pretty woman. First of all, we're going to start with a base of our outlines, just so that when we're painting the rest of our picture, our lines don't disappear on us. They're pretty important. It's going to take a lot of guesswork out of where the lines and colors should end up for you guys. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a little bit of black and a little bit of brown and mix them together just to create a darker brown. So you don't necessarily want a stark black line for her baseline. You want to kind of soften it up with a darker chocolate brown. So we're taking the brown and the black, blending them together so we get a darker shade of brown, almost like Hershey's chocolate. And I'm going to come in and really load your brush with a good amount of paint. You want to make sure your brush is a little wet so that your paint will glide smoothly on the canvas. And we're just going to take our time and find the lines. So we're going to start here with her nose. I'm going to trace over the line that we provided. Bring this little line up to meet this line. And this is our first layer. So little mistakes won't pop through that much, but we just want to take our time to get the shapes of what's going on here, so it's easier later. Just go over these lines. And come up to her eye, we'll see that she has the top of her eyelid. Go over that one. Top of her eye. And go in with the bottom of the eye. Just so that we can kind of see the outline of the face coming to life on our canvas. Top eyelid line. And if you are not as fast as me, definitely pause the video. Really take your time on these lines. These lines are going to shape her face. I'm going to draw on her a little bit of her eyebrow there. Probably going to be a little bit of eyebrow there. And her nose. Let's trace over the lines that we have for her nose. Just so that we have an idea of where things are going to go once we start painting. And her mouth, lip, top lip, follow the lines right around. Bottom lip. Also going to take time to define outside of her face. So some of that is kind of clear with the line here. And her hairline up at the top of her head is a little bit it's like an open forehead style with a little bit of her hair swooping down over her forehead. So just like a little wavy line there. And match that wavy line come down. It's like a little triangle up there. And we're getting an idea where her hair is resting on her face and where her face is shaped. And if you find that your paint isn't gliding across the canvas pretty smoothly, then just dip the paintbrush in a little bit of water and you'll be able to get the paint going right back onto the canvas smoothly. Right, so we have a little bit of our line work going on. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a larger brush. I'm just going to kind of put the base color of her face on. I'm going to dip my larger brush in a little bit of water, not a whole lot. Dab it on our paper towel. And just go with the light brown that you were given. We're not mixing any of the color. I'm loading it on the brush. And this is just the base coat. So we want to do it pretty thin so that it dries and we can add other layers to her face. When you're painting a face, when you're putting on the paint, I don't want to go in the contour shape of the face. So following the lines of the face will kind of make the paint go on, look a little more symmetrical if the lines that you're making with your brush are in fact the same shape of the lines that would kind of use for a contour of her face. If you notice that your lines that you painted earlier are smudging a little bit, you may want to try and paint around them a little bit so that they don't smudge away, but it's okay for them to smudge a little. I'm just coloring in her face, just using the slight thinnest coat of paint. Staying in the shapes, going with the shapes of her face with our brush strokes. If you are having some thoughts about the brush strokes that you're seeing that are there, don't worry, they'll disappear in the next coat or two. Maybe coloring. Place in. This is a basic brown coat. Okay. I have a good base coat of brown on her face. So I make sure I kind of get all of the little areas that may have a little bit of white shining through from the canvas. Sometimes if you want to leave some of the canvas color popping through, you can. Doing a couple more layers. So I'm sure it'll get covered up with one of the layers. All right. So now that we have a base color on her face, we're going to go in and kind of identify the contour of her outside of her face, just to give it a little round appearance. I'm going to go ahead and mix the light brown with the darker brown that we made earlier. So we have a shade in between the dark brown and the light brown. I'm going to come in with that color. Just kind of, you can see how that color is slightly darker than the base color, but is lighter than the original line work that we did. I'm just going to kind of reiterate the shadow that's going on where her hair sits on her face. There's the shadow kind of under her eye. Shadow is going to go down the bridge of the nose, this little line right here. A little bit of a shadow in the corner of where her eye meets her nose. You just kind of play with the paint. First couple coats are going to be a little tricky, because you just will see all your brush strokes. Just getting a feel for where her face might curve. Let's give her neck some color down here as well. Over here. Going to come right in this crease on her cheek and just fill in a little bit dark there. A little bit of dark paint on the other side where her crease is. The smile line, I should call it. Love a smile line. Well, this face is coming along pretty nice. What we're going to do now is we're going to start layering in some different hues of different colors so that we can bring her to life. What I want to do now is take the brown that we gave you And go ahead and mix a little bit of that with the orange. This is going to warm up our brown and give our birthday lady a lovely glow. You can already see how the color is softened up, and mixing the orange with it just gives it a little bit more coverage. And this is now the third layer. You'll see the brush strokes start to fade where you're putting your paint. Basically, you want to kind of give her a good coat over her entire face. And we mix the orange and the brown, you get this color. And this is our base color for our face. And from here on out, we're probably going to be putting in a lot of highlight work. Really smoothing out our paint lines. And this area gives a little base color. Right. While it's still wet, I'm going to rinse my brush. And I'm going to see how some yellow will come in to play with these colors that we have on. It's important to experiment. You never know what a color will do on top of another color. So we're going to bring some yellow highlight in on her cheeks here. Definitely on her chin. We're mixing the colors right on the canvas with each other. You can see how the colors will mix on your palette, or you can be brave and put them right on the canvas and just mix them. And remember that paint is not permanent, except for it's on your clothes. Anything that we put on our canvas today, once it dries, if we don't like how it looks, you can easily paint over it. I find myself always, second guessing and going back and reworking an area. So, definitely do what you feel you need to for your artwork to speak to you, that it's good for you. All right, so on her nose, you want to get that highlight in pretty good. Her nose also has the cheek that's here. We're going to just bring that out, put that highlight back onto her cheek, making sure accentuate her cheek where the light would hit. And take a little bit more yellow and accentuate this cheek. See that coming out. And I'm really dragging my brush in the direction of her cheek so that we can shape her cheek. Just dragging the brush down, quick small strokes. And right there you can see that we're making a cheekbone and a cheek. And take a little bit of yellow paint again, highlight her lip. And things are looking yellow, but this is just yet another layer on our face. We're going to come in, tone that right on up. Just want to accentuate the bottom of her cheek here. Just making circular motions and spreading our paint around in the shape that her face is making. Right. And you can see there have some life coming into her face. We have her nose shape is coming out, her cheeks. Also want to put a little bit more yellow up here on her forehead. Kind of with her highlight there. It's almost like we're putting makeup on when you're painting the face. Bringing out those tears of color. Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to take a little bit of the brown and a little bit of white. I'm going to make a lighter brown and just a little tiny bit. It's going to go a long way. So we're just going to dot it in some places where we think extra highlights needed. So I did her bridge of her nose, her cheek. I put the dots, put some of the color here on her cheek, on her chin, a little bit on her forehead, up around her eyebrows where we have highlights, and above her eyelid, give her a highlight. We have our highlights in. I'm going to rinse the brush out. You don't want to go overboard with the highlights right now. I'm going to take I'm going to leave the brush a little bit wetter than normal. And I'm going to take the brown. And when you add water to the acrylic paint, it thins it out. So you can do a sheer coat and it will pick up what is under it and blend it in. We're going to go a swooping motion in the shape of her cheek and get that shape. I'm going to go right down the bridge of her nose, blend that in. Eyelid, the cheek, chin, bring that out a little bit. You can see when you make something a little lighter, it appears closer to the viewer on the canvas. Right. And just get rid of your brush strokes. You can very gently tap the tip of the bristles to the canvas and just glide bristles across the surface in the direction that most of the brush strokes were going. And just blend all of the strokes in so that you don't see them on the face as much. Highlight your eyebrows, eyelids, around her eye here. And you can still see your lines, so you should be good. If not, we'll draw them in later. Just try and not panic if you don't see the eye lines. It's okay. And you're being brave enough to try to paint a face. Not a lot of avid painters or hobby painters would attempt a face, so hats off to you for sure. Great. Okay. We have our highlights in. And if you're still working on your highlights, it's okay. You can pause the video. And this, when you're doing a face, it's just a lot of pushing the paint around just to see how the shapes are going to come through, what looks right to you. You always want to remember that the nose, the cheekbones, and the forehead and the chin are always going to be a lighter tone because they have more shape to them versus the other areas, such as the eye sockets, are going to be a little darker shade. Great. I'm being happy with how her face is looking. Anything that you start out with stuff that looks nothing like what your final picture will look like. And then you can look and say that you did that. All right. I want to go ahead and come back in with our tinier brush and see where our lines are going to be. With our tiny brush, we're going to get that dark brown that we made at first by mixing the brown and the black together. I'm just going to come in and redefine where her eyes are so we don't lose them. Eyes are important. So I'm just outlining her eye in the darker brown for now. Lights. Frame her eye. Do the same thing with this eye. Just so we know exactly where the eye lives for our next coat on our face. Facing everything that we had. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and take the little brush and switch to all black. Just define the pupil of her eye. But we can start to see our soulful eyes coming together on our painting. Give her life. So when you're doing the eye, I'm going to Go very carefully around the outside of the eye, following the line. Little tiny brush strokes. We're not going to color the entire eye in. I'm going to follow that pattern of what was printed. It wasn't a mistake. I'm going to keep a little bit of the eye white. A little bit of the eye white will indicate where the light is reflecting. Give it a little bit more depth. We have one eye. And we can play around with how big we want the reflection of the light to be. Right now, I think I'm going to leave it like that. And the black is going to really make this eye pop once we put the black liner around her eye. And come right in on the bottom. And top. Give that eye an outline. Right. I'm going to do the same thing to the next eye. I'm going to follow pupil guide lines that we have all the way around. Color it in. Just leave a little speck of this eye where the light is shining. Go in and trace the bottom eye line. And trace while I'm here, the eyes, go ahead and ever so slightly, just a little bit of black paint, just kind of go over a little bit of our lines that we have. I'm not going over the complete line. I'm just picking places where I want to lay the black paint down. Really at the start of the lines. And they just kind of fade out into the rest of the coloring over that it's over top of. Now we are tracing the eye lines that we have currently. We don't kind of lose track of where they should be. I'm going to keep doing that throughout our painting. All right, so we're going to start in with her eyes. I rinsed my brush. So to create the eyelid, we want to take darker brown and come in and put the darker brown here to create an indent of where the eye socket lives. So I'm going to take the dark brown that we made originally, mixing the black. I'm going to come right over here and I'm going to echo that brown coloring in the shape of her eye. Definitely a little. I'm going to do the same thing for this eye. Take, and we also need a little bit of brown shattering on her edge of her nose. I'm also going to define this eye a little bit more by having some brown coming up the side of the nose where her eye and her nose meet. While it's still wet, we're going to go in and blend it out. So I'm going to switch brushes and then go back to the larger brush. We're going to do what's called a dry brush technique, where we dry off our brush completely. There's no color on it, and we're just going to come back in and kind of blend the areas of the dark that we made with the base color, just so that it doesn't look as harsh. I don't want to see an actual line. I don't want to see the color and the shades. If you see a line, it's okay. We can come back and cover it up. So let me get her eye shape in. We've colored around her eye with a darker color to create a little bit of depth. That her eye is sitting inside of her eyelid. And we're blending the lines so that we don't see them, just by moving our brush in a little circular motion back and forth. Circular motions will leave less brush lines. Right. As you can see, we have her face coming together a little bit more. And what we'll do is we're going to mix, get another face color. We're going to take the original brown, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of white. And I'm going to mix this to get a nice warm tan color. And I'm just going to come on in to her face, kind of highlight the area again. This time I'm going to get a little bit more brave with my highlights. Cover them. Laying the highlights on her chin. I'll leave the right under her lip a little darker than our highlight, because that's a little bit of a shadow created. A little bit of a highlight. Her eyelid, same over here. As you can see, use your finger to blend a little bit too. The brush isn't doing the job. Great. We've got yet another layer on our face. All that's wet. Take advantage of that. And we're going to rinse the brush of our color. I'm going to come back in with just the regular brown. I'm going to make this pretty sheer. Just going to clean up some of the edges we have here with some brown. And what you want to do is kind of just go over playing with the shapes that you have coming out on your face, the hues, different colors, remembering that you want the forehead to be lighter than the outside of her face where her hair is covering it. Less light is hitting it on the outside of her face. Keep them brown. And then go around places where I think it should work. Have a good part of her face going. I'm going to let that dry a little bit so our layers have some time to set. I'm going to rinse my brush and I'm going to come right in and define her hair. Hair is pretty fun. It's pretty forgiving. And we can go right in, take just black. So I'm going to put the dark black right around her face. That's going to be where the shadow of her hair is. And I'm kind of going to pretend like I'm actually brushing strands of her hair in. Just making quick brush strokes to indicate where the direction of the hair is going. And I want that solid dark line all the way around her face. That's going to be where the shadow of her hair and her face meet. And I'm going to shape her head. You see that there's hair coming this way too, up and over. Kind of play where I think her hair might be. This is just the bottom layer of our hair. We'll be able to play with that later. I'm going to come in and make her next piece of hair come in this way. Just like we're brushing hair. Put another stroke. And it's okay to leave some white areas. If you want, we're just gonna play around with some texture here in a little bit. I'll show you how to add texture hair. Just little strokes like that will give indication that there is hair there. Back up to the top of her head. I'm going to shape it out that way. Great. So we kind of have her bottom of hair going. Going to Come back in. We want to define that shadow dark edge around her face. I'm going to frame her face and make everything pop. Then we're going to park that brush for a moment. Take our tinier brush. I'm going to come in with some white, just a little bit of white, while our black is still wet. And I'm just going to kind of put some highlights in with the white. Just some stripes here and there where I think white should go. Where the light might hit it. And they look white right now, but we're going to go back and use that dry brush technique. So they're really going to blend together nicely just to create a little bit of texture and area for your eye to travel to when you're viewing the picture. And make sure your brush is pretty dry. Come in and just blend the white in with the black. Kind of go over the brush strokes that you made. You'll see that kind of turn into like a smoky gray, and that's what we want because that's the kind of highlight that black hair has. The gray, sometimes a blue hue. Right now, we got some highlights going on. Let's come back in with our black, and you make even more highlight or low lights. I guess that would be low lights now. So we switch to black, and you're just going to repeat this process over and over until we actually have a pattern that looks like some hair. And this is the same concept that we did on the face with layering. Outside of her hair, I'm going to make it darker too. And you can choose whether you want the outside of her hair to be all a smooth line or if you want to kind of make it so that you can see it's a little hair by just showing little texture on the smoothness of the outside line. We'll let her hair dry. We'll come back in and give it some more highlights in a moment. I'm going to come back in with our little brush. Really start to bring her eyes to life with the black again. Really make her top eyeline a little thick here. feel free to turn your canvas so that you can do the line the way you like. Whatever's comfortable to your hand. And the black kind of go in the corner right above her eyelid. Kind of, we know that her eyelid is going in. Bring a little bit of the brown in with the black over here. And a little shadowing. And just shape her eyelid. While that's wet, and just bring that highlight of the eyelid back in. And rinse that. And bring black back in to kind of go over where her lines are here on this side. And she trace the top of the eyelid again. Just a little bit. And grab some brown and just kind of blend that little bit of that harshness of the black line in right above her top eyelid there. I'm kind of going to follow the eyebrow just a little bit. Same shape back and forth, blending it. With the lighter brown and the yellow mixed. To give a little bit of a highlight up here. Gonna do the same tone on her eyelid as a highlight. Take your time, put your paintbrush where it, in the little spaces. It's not erased, you can always pause. While that's still wet, I'm going to rinse all the paint out of my brush, dry it off just a little, and then come back and blend it in. In a back and forth motion. And this is giving us a highlight to her eyelid and the eyebrow area. And created the depth of the fold of the eyelid. And we're taking and spreading the darker area up into the corner of the face where the eye socket meets the bridge of the nose. I'm going to make that a little darker so that you can tell it's set in away from the canvas front, going back. I'm going to take and do the same thing on this side with the highlight, just a little bit. To bring her eye shape back of her eye into play. And Rinse our brush, go back in with the black. Define those lines a little better. Just a little bit, don't need a whole lot. And we're gonna rinse the brush, blot it off a little, and blend the black into the highlight we left there a little bit ago. Just by going back and forth in a little circular motion. Turn my canvas because I can see where my black line got a little shaky. My hand wasn't placed where I needed it to be. We'll show you how to fix that in 1 second. And if you went too dark, you can always take more of that yellow and brown color and come in right on her brow and lighten it right back up just a little bit. All right, now I'm going to take and reinvent her eye shape at the top with this black line. And it's going to pick up back where we had some of our other lines coming in with her face. It looks like our bottom layer of our face is dry. What we're going to do is try and give her a nice glowing complexion. The colors that we have here. I'm going to take and I'm going to mix yellow, a light brown, a little bit of white. I come out with a tanny orange color. And come in with those highlights on her face. These are really going to define where the shape of her face goes. A little bit on her nose. See how the face takes shape. Just place some color. Just kind of 3D pop off the canvas a little. We're just playing around when we're putting color. If you put color down somewhere and it doesn't work out, don't worry. We can wait till it dries. We can paint over it, see how it looks. You can always fix your painting. Only done and finished. You say it is. Who are the artists? Get this. Okay, while that's still wet, I'm gonna come in with a little bit of shadowing. I'm gonna switch brushes to our little brush. And we're gonna take the brown and the dark brown that we made, mix them together. And come into where her cheek shadow is. I'm gonna draw that line in just a little bit. And I messed up a little, it's okay. I'm gonna come in and blend it right away. Just want to show you how easy fixing mistakes and canvases, don't get discouraged. So easy to fix. Put her nose in the back where it was. By adding a little bit of brown paint where I think shadows are gonna lie. And we kind of look harsh right now, but we're gonna go right back in and blend it in. Define that eyebrow a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna take that same color that we made. It was the orange, brown, yellow, white. And come right in here and just kind of shimmy that in with our shadow. And you'll see that it's starting to blend. And if it's not quite the tone that you want it, which is, I'm just gonna kind of play with some things, options here. Getting there. A little bit of a darker tone. Okay, while it's still wet. So just the brown paint. Come right in and define the cheekbone here. Mm, Dry. And coming in, blend in some areas. Underneath her lip is going to be darker. Do that. Right above her chin will be darker. I'm going to kind of correct her chin. Just a little. have the dry brush technique. I'm just going to kind of really dry brush those colors together. So wiggling your brush back and forth. See them start to blend. Right. To go back in with the highlight. Really, you can see every time we layer our color on top, it changes just a little. The colors underneath are popping through. Just want to kind of have all of our colors. Your face. And their face could be any color if you wanted to make it any color. But really have fun with art. You could experiment making faces, different colors, different shades of a color. Wait for that cheek to dry. Switch to the little brush, and we're going to really come in and work on her nose now. We're going to outline where her nostrils are just with the black. It's a little tiny line. And if we mess up, we can blend the line away. And I'm going to just put a little tiny black nostril in the center of our brown nostril. And continue that line down the nose. So let's come in and really give our nose some shape. So we haven't really done much with it. So while that black line is wet, I'm just going to take a little bit of a brown, just a regular brown, kind of blend it in with the black line. And putting down our shadow for our nose first. Kind of soften her feature. I'm going to come in with a lighter color so that we can define where the light is shining on her nose. We're going to take some of the brown, and a little bit of the orange, and a little bit of white. and mix them in together. Get like a tan color, and we're gonna just right in to where her nostrils are here. Just gonna put in a highlight. And you can see this highlight is even lighter than my last highlight. That's what you do. I'm gonna kind of go all over with the highlight, bringing the face together. In a little area of interest. If something becomes too light, we can always go over it. So what we're doing now is just providing a little bit more highlight, different areas, cheekbones. Okay. This cheek is giving me a little bit of hard time, but we're gonna get it together right here. Just play around where we put our highlights. A good trick is I just actually want to get this off. If you take a lot of water on your brush, you can use it as an eraser. Just lift that line away and take and reshape that line. It's not flowing with your face the way it was in the picture. Okay, well, take the line again. A darker brown. I'm gonna come in with a couple other browns. Oh, it's so wet. Blend it together. You have A little bit of the lighter brown right here. I'm going to come in with our highlight color while it's wet and define the size and shape of the cheek. So as you can see, we're about 7 layers into our face. Oh, yeah, a few more to go. Come in with a darker brown, mixing the brown and then the black to really define a small line. And let's start on her lips. Help our cheek area come together a little bit better. So we haven't really touched any of the other colors. I'm going to venture into our red. Give her a nice set of red lips. Let's wearing some red lipstick today. I'm just going to start out with plain red. And just basically box our color in for our lip. And other side. That's the basic shape of her lip. Come in and really shape her lip to her face. So what we're going to do is mix a red and black. So we have a darker red color. So a little bit of black. I'm going to come in. Figure out what area her lips are in. Other side. And as you can see, we make the corners of the mouth darker and the center of the lips. It starts to give them a little bit of a curvier shape. It might take a couple coats to really notice the effect. I have to come back to the lips in a little bit for our second coat. Do the darker color in the middle of the two lips as well. Let's let that dry. Come back down a little bit. While we're waiting for that to dry, we'll start with her shadowing under her lip. While that's still wet, I'm going to switch to the larger brush and do the yellow, orange, brown, and white mixture. It's down here for your chin. Grabbing a little bit of the shadow that I laid down for underneath your chin. You just gotta play around with what colors speak to you and how you want your colors to be transformed on your canvas. And if you make a mistake, don't worry, when it dries, you can paint right over it. Right on over it. And you can have all different colors as undertones in your painting. I'll pop through a little bit each layer. I think the neck needs a little love down here, so we're just going to come in with our regular brown. And with a little black. And it's going to do some shadowing under her chin. And kind of figure out based on the picture where her chin line should be. A little off. I think we got a little better now. You can tell that there is no light getting to that part of her neck. A little dark. We'll just put some brown right on over it. Soften that black up. Her neck. Also want to come with that same dark black color that we have and just kind of frame her face over here by her hair. Just dragging that right around the borders of her hair. A little brown and black. Just layering that shadow right back on where we had it before. I'll park this brush. Really try to give her lips a little bit more shape. And then with the red again, hopefully it's going to take a couple little layers, but we'll get it done. With and black mixed with a little bit of red to define the corners of her lips here. See here, trying to get a little bit too much black. Wipe your brush off on your paper towel. Make them with some red. We can blend it right on in. And her lips come in the shape. Gonna do the same thing on the other side. With a little bit of black mixed with a little bit of red to define this corner. And if you feel like you got too much black, just come right back on in with your red and blend them out. Put my black color in first. Bring my red color in. Make sure we see where her lips are meeting. I'm gonna tone that down a little bit. Some red. Put it right on in. And make this eyelid with a little tiny bit bigger. So I'm gonna come up here with a little bit of a highlight. We'll make that line that we have a little bigger here. This is where we're gonna go in and kind of shape her face. Wait for that to dry. I want to highlight right around her cheek area. We want to highlight this area so that this area is a little bit more pronounced with her smile line. Right now with her jawbone. With a little bit of lighter brown. And rework her eye area just a little bit. A little light brown and just a little bit of the black. Bring her eyelid back in. A little bit of a different hue now. And softer. And blend that in. Keeping her eye. That's a little wet. We'll come back in with one of our highlight colors. Just highlight the arch of her eyebrow again. Touch it with the finger a little. You feel like brush isn't doing the trick, which then it wasn't. I'm gonna come over here and do the same thing. Take the brown, going in her crease, her eyelid. We want to see that there is a line, but we don't want to see a line. Do that by blending the colors so that you can see the variation of the shades, but you can't see the line that you need anymore. And some areas you're going to have stubborn areas where you just can't get it right. And if you just can't get it right after a couple tries, don't worry, just leave it and come back to it. Maybe, when you approach it again, you'll have a different feel for it. Know what you might want to do with it. Good base going on so far. Go ahead and take our big brush out and get our red shirt going. And this is basically we're just going to color in the shirt red, or what other color you would like her to have her shirt. Red is a powerful color. She looks like a powerful woman. Her red shirt. We're going to keep it red. I'm just going to color in the shirt. We're going to kind of stay away from the little design pattern, if at all possible, just to find them easier when we're ready to paint them in. And you can't really do this part wrong. And bring all of your red in our shirt. It's okay if you see brush marks. This is our first coat. We'll probably get 2 coats for her shirt. We're painting her shirt. You can dip a little bit of water. The paint will be a little thinner, but it'll spread a lot easier. A little bit more area covered. If it's too thin, just blot it on your blot your brush on your paper towel, or pick up some more paint on your brush and even the water paint ratio. We got a good base layer of our shirt down. Let that dry so we can put another layer on, maybe even another layer. I'm going to come up to her turtleneck, which it has in the picture. That's black. So dip my large brush in the black and just pick up where turtleneck is. Picture. So it's right here. I'm going to come down and around. There's kind of a fold in the fabric on the turtleneck. So we're going to outline the fabric fold. And that's like right here. This line will follow the shape of her neckline. And we're also going to bring this line in to define the outside of the turtleneck. Now that we have them, define the top of the turtleneck here. Make sure these are darkest lines here. I'm going to blot our brush off the paint, and then we're just going to come back in and drag the paint that we have around. And back and forth like this. And this will create a wrinkle in her turtleneck, just so it doesn't look like a big black nothing around her neck. You can see that the fabric is folding. And really define where that layer is between the two with a nice dark line and a shadow. And then I'm going to blot my brush and come back in with that dry brush technique that we were using earlier to smear the color around. You can see that it kind of looks like piece of fabric laying on her. Looks like we are wearing a cape or a scarf, but we're going to call it a cape because she is a superwoman. She's 75. And she's rocking a cape. We're going to mix a little bit of the red with our black just to get a maroon color. Kind of the same color as her lips. I'm just going to lay down the maroon color for her cape. Right here. It has a design on it, and we can definitely go back in and add in a little bit of a design later. I wasn't going to have you paint around everything. More of that color. And we have that here. Nice rich maroon color. If you have too much black, don't worry. You can easily wait for this to dry and add a layer of red on top. And it will look like maroon with a black undertone. Alright, so we have our first layers of her clothing all done. We'll wait for those to dry. We can come back in and do another layer. And while we're doing accessories, Kate, I'm going to go right over here to our earring. So the earring is in her hair. I don't want her ear as well. The ear kind of got a little lost in the transfer. So we'll draw it back in as best as we can. I got a little bit of the ear on there. While we're waiting for that to dry, let's go and paint our whites on our design on our shirt. So the shirt design is a paisley, and it's basically a circle with a line, like a comma with a curly tail. We'll do a circle and then a curly tail. The same type of pattern here. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of emulating the design that she had in her picture. Not going to focus on every detail of the design. Just to give you the idea though. You could, if you wanted to, focus on all the little dots. We'll add some dots, but the pattern would be enough. Shape to pull the eye around the painting. Find all of our areas of interest. Okay, if you mess up, we can always wait for it to dry, paint over it. You could also wet your brush with a lot of water and just kind of scrape the paint away. Your little mistake. Just making these little shapes stand out a little bit more. That's our white. It's with a circle and a little curly line. They're not all going to be the same, so don't worry. We have our paisleys pretty much painted in. Shirt. That's what we're going to do. And I'll wait for those to dry. And let's see what we can do. While we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to come in with a little brush, my white. I'm just going to define where the earring is with white first. So the earring is in the one side of her ear. It comes down and around and doesn't go up onto this ear. It goes behind it, so you won't see the back of that earring. I'm going through the fire just a little. White is actually like a eraser. It's like when you use a pencil on your canvas, you can come in with a white and erase the paint on your canvas. And a nice little handy tool. So here we are with that. And what I'm going to do now is come in and really try and bring her eyes in a little bit more life. This technique, we're going to take the little brush and just a little dab of black paint. You want your black paint to be pretty watery because we're going to shade the pupil area. And you don't want it a whole solid black line, but you just want a little bit of the diluted black. And this will give your pupil some shape. Just a little bit of black, some water on your brush, and you kind of just go in the corner there. If it's too dark, just grab some more water. And we're just making our pupil a little bit shaded so that it can show that it's not a flat object, but actually a round object. I'm going to get a little bit more black and come in. And we'll make our eyes with her makeup on. And do that. I think I'm going to come in and define a little bit of the area with some of the black. I'm trying to make her eyes come a little bit more to life. I decided that I want this area to be a little smaller. I'm going to go with her other eye. A little twinkle in her eye. We come in with our yellow. Give our earring a little bit of pop here. Our first coat on our earring. Just kind of color in the white that you painted. While we're waiting for that to dry, let's come back to her hair. So her hair is behind the earring. I'm gonna take our little brush and just go in there just to show that the earring is sitting on some hair. Bring that black through. While I have the black, I'm going to outline the earring. Kind of fill in any area behind the earring with some black just to show you that it is sitting on top of her hair. There's something else going on back there. If you got any yellow on your black, this is the time to I'm going to clean those lines up. Over around the earring again. Right. Now, we're going to go in with another really dark shadow layer right here. Take a little bit of white while I'm working with the black. I'm going to bring it in. A little bit at a time. Keep the black here. Really good. Just a little bit of white. Looks like a lot of white, but when you really go in with black, it's not going to really amount to a lot of white. I'll switch brushes up here to my larger brush so I can cover more area. And just grab the black like we did before. That's gray, which is fine. I'm going to come right back in and make it black again. Just want to show some texture what her hair might be doing. And it's just little wispy areas. Do that over here too. And with our black. Black shadows in the hair that's closest to her face. And white highlights. Take the black with it not just flat black look. And shape it up a little. Right here, now that this is dry a little, we can blend out a little bit more. Keep layering black and the white. Just got her hair down. While we're waiting for everything else to dry, let's go ahead and start in on the background. I chose to do mine a red, orange to yellow fade. So I started out with the yellow around her head, like a halo. Just gonna come right on in and do her yellow right around her head. And you can get some of the yellow in her hair. I mean, it's art. kind of looks cool. Not to have like a stark line sometimes. Kind of blend it in. Don't be afraid to mess up. Paint. You see how some of it is in the yellow? I don't care. That'll be okay. And then I'm going to take in some red. Bring that right in at the top corner. Watch my brush a little bit. We want that red. We can pull the red from our shirt up to the top corner. That'll help your eye travel throughout the canvas. I'm just going to go back and forth on the corner like that. Get a nice little fade going. I'm going to grab some orange. Come in with the orange. Come in with some more red. Just have fun with it. You can mix this color. It's really fun. A little bit more red. And just go brushing back and forth on our canvas. As I get closer to the yellow, blend that in. I want to grab some yellow. Kind of fade that out into the orange. And have a nice background going on. Bring some orange in over here. A little bit of red. And now we're at the stages where I want to go in and do a little touch up. A little bit of more eye definition. There's areas on her eye where I can see that we need to go in and pay a little attention to. Okay, maybe here. Bring that a little bit light brown in her eye. Come over here and repeat the same effect to kind of soften out the black that we have going on. And kind of play around, adding in just a little bit of color here and there. Help with where the light is hitting and where it isn't hitting. Fix her lips up just a little. She doesn't really have red lips in her picture, but I'm gonna make them a little red here. I'll tone it down a little bit. You can tone it down a little bit. You can add brown into the red and give it a little bit of a not so in your face red. And while that red is wet, I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight to it. Oops. Here. And the littlest bit of white I'm just gonna come right on in here. Make this highlight on her lip. Give her a little highlight up here too. Just a little subtle one. Looking down, define the corner of her mouth. A little shading here. Shading that I'm picking is a chocolate brown, so brown mixed with the black. Just to give her mouth a little bit of the shape that it's going back into her face rather than out in the front. I'm going to apply a little bit of shadowing under her lip to give the feeling that it is a curve there. Also do the same shadowing here. Keep revisiting, reworking the shadows and the lines. This is a lot of what painting is, layers. Just keep visiting the areas that need a little bit of help coming to light. And load my brush up on some water, almost so that it's pretty sheer. I'm just going to come in and spread the shadow around. Let's blend that in right on the canvas, of course, with that orange, brown, and yellow coloring. Just to kind of give you the idea of her face is bending. Away from the picture, the front of the picture to another area. Picture. Here, and that make it so harsh. We're coming to the home stretch of her face. Hope you're starting to like what's on your canvas. Okay, if not, this is your first face, I'm sure. They're very challenging. I really haven't done a lot of faces, but I don't give up. And I work my paint around until I like what I see on my canvas. That's my advice to you, for sure, especially when you're dealing with people, features in the face. Just adding some more texture into her hair while we wait for our layers to dry. You can see how every time you put a layer on top of another layer, it gets easier and easier to build shapes and textures, leaving some of the other layer popping through. Now I can take and venture down to our little paisley design. What I'm going to do is just take the reverse end of my brush, which is still a little wooden stick, and put a little dab of the paint on. I'm just going to dab it on, make the dots on our shirt. They don't have to be perfect. Just kind of emulating the pattern that she had on her shirt. And black paint that time. Add some shadow to the shirt by adding another coat to it. Just 1 second. So I'm gonna try and get these little dots on here. You could use the other end of your brush and make the dots. It's just a little easier this way. Our dots on. And I'm gonna switch to the larger brush. And then with some red, kind of clean my lines up down here. As you can see with the second coat of red, you have more coverage now that the bottom layer of the red is dry. Very carefully, I want to glide my brush around the paisley design. Okay, if you get it in there, it'll look cute. Okay. There. And right now our shirt looks pretty flat because we haven't added any shading, folds, or anything like that. Of course, while it's wet, we're going to blend right in on the canvas, some shadowing in our shirt where things are overlapping and covering up. As soon as we're done this layer here, we picked up some black paint. Don't worry, we'll fix it by putting some more red paint on top of it. It'll blend right in. And while we have our black paint, I'm going to grab some black paint. I'm going to define her arm in a black line right on in here. And then I'm going to grab some red, go right in there, and blend it in. Giving it a little bit of a shadow where her arm is folded. I'll let that dry. I want to do the same thing over here just to give a little bit of a shadow where the cape is laying on her red shirt. Also here. Give a little bit of texture by putting some darker lines in there. And coming back in with some red. After this dries, go back over it and give it that. We're almost done. Going to come in with our gold. You're wondering why we were going to use the gold. Well, now we're going to use the gold. And it's going to give her earring a little bit of bling. Kind of making little lines just to give it a not flat shape. I'm also going to take and bring some of the gold into her cape. So I'm just going to make like a little bit of designs. I know I had a design on it earlier. Just little specks of color, something to just grab your eye as you're looking at your masterpiece. It will make your eye wander all over. It doesn't have to be any shapes that you picked out. Just something. And I think I'd like to give her a little bit of a gold highlight on her eye too. This is where you can have fun experimenting. What works for you and your painting. I'll go highlight here. We still have one coming here on the peak. Just to kind of carry the gold throughout the painting, the element of design, and you can carry the color throughout the painting. So different areas. Some areas might not need the gold. You see an area that I tried it on and I don't really like it, but that's okay. I'll show you how to get rid of that. Don't need a whole lot of areas of gold. I'll just neat this one down a little. As you can see, we've used so many colors on our face today. Painting up a little bit of each color and just layering it. When you look at skin, it's never all one color. The light always hits it differently, different angles. I'm just gonna come back in down here with our red and even out this shadow that we put in. With circular motions. Still wet. We're gonna blend that stark line out. With circular motions. And sometimes red needs a couple coats, so I'm gonna let this dry, go back in and coat it up again. Red is one of those colors that's kind of thinner. Shadow on our shirt where her arm is. Soften the shadow up here by just going over our shadow line with a little red paint. And just kind of clean up our brush lines on our shirt from a previous layer. And do a technique called cross hatching, where you go the opposite direction of the brush strokes on the layer previous. And stop, it's okay. Clean it away. Paint is very forgiving. And if you mess up when that layer dries, you can touch it up. You can leave it how it is. Also, sometimes a mistake on your canvas is like the best creative part. Somebody else will interpret that as a work of art. I'll look around, see if there's anything you aren't happy with on your painting. Now's the time to kind of go in and work on that, fix out little areas that just aren't really speaking to you. I'm gonna give a shadow. Laying on the red shirt. Just by blending some black in with the red that's wet there. And I think we have a masterpiece ready for your wall or just for memory. I hope you enjoyed painting with me tonight. Hope it found time to set aside all your busy hustle lifestyles to let your inner child out and create. We would love to see your finished products. Don't be shy. You can find us at Coleman Events on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a little card for us here. Put that down here, please share your creations. And I hope that you enjoyed your evening celebrating a lovely 75 years. I wish you many more.